actually was in an ad once when I was 17 years old. Honey, I hope you never saw the ad. It was the tackiest thing ever. I'm from this little redneck town, and one of my neighbors invented a new kind of roll top cover for a pickup truck. And they put me in a crop top and cut off short shorts. And I'm leaning out of the cab of the truck, and it is exactly what you're imagining. And it was sent to like car dealerships and mechanics garages. Yeah, I got paid a little. And then I went off to college and became a feminist and realized that that wasn't something I was going to keep doing. I say, why not dress up for every day? It takes very little time, very little more time, very little additional time to throw on something fun as to throw on something every day. So why not take that extra minute or two and throw on the fun thing and make your day that much more exciting. And travel is a passion for me, and I've had the great good fortune to be able to do a lot of it in my life. I was raised in the Pacific Northwest, and as an adult I've lived in Palo Alto, California, in Boston, Massachusetts, Oxford, England, New York, Hirakata, Japan, Washington, D.C, Shanghai, China, Suva, Fiji, Annapolis, Maryland, and now San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I've traveled all over. I've been so very lucky. For work, I've traveled to a number of places in Asia. I've just scratched the surface of Africa. I did thesis research in South America. One of my favorite trips was backpacking across Asia with a couple girlfriends. We started in Japan, went to Korea, China, Tibet, Nepal. I've also backpacked around Mexico and Central America, and everywhere I go I pick up some sort of inspiration, some style influences, and of course lots of gorgeous souvenirs. And my favorite souvenirs are the wearable kind. I would have had to go back to work. There was no question. I was going to be working crazy hours. I had started working a wonderful job, but it was in D.C. We were living in Annapolis, and I was commuting so many hours a day. One of the fathers at the school we were at said, "I saw you in traffic the other day, and you were so angry. You were just so angry." And I know that feeling. I know exactly what I saw, because all that time commuting was time I wasn't with my kids. Here, I can afford not to work. I can afford to experiment with writing. I can be fully present in my kids' life. It's incredible. It's a gift for our family. A little bit. Before grad school, for 6 months, Phil and I traveled around Mexico and Central America. And our first stop was here in San Miguel, and we did language school here for a couple weeks. And we traveled for 3 months in Mexico and 3 months in Belize, Guatemala, Panama, Costa Rica. But we weren't fluent, but we were pretty functional by the end of that. But that was a decade ago and we weren't using it, so we're kind of starting over when we got here. When I worked for Internews, which is a nonprofit that does all sorts of media training for reporters, and I was hired to start a program to train them how to better cover human rights. And I was in Kenya for a portion of it, and there's a women's cooperative where the women actually make the beads as a way to survive, to support themselves. And I fell in love with the beads, so they're a fun part of it for me. The boots, I couldn't even tell you what brand. They're just fun, and I've been wearing them for years. I can check. My husband is half Native American, Cherokee and Pomo, and he had a Cherokee craftsman make these for us. His is the more masculine one with the bear claw, and mine is the 3-strand choker. He actually got the suggestion from it from the triple strand of pearls, the more Audrey Hepburn look. But this is an interpretation in bone and rawhide and brass beads, very traditional Cherokee jewelry that I just love. After the birth of our second son, he designed this and had a jeweler in Annapolis, Maryland, where we were living, put it together. It's supposed to represent the two branches of our family tree coming together, and where they intersect, there's a little sapphire, which is our oldest son's birthstone, and a little topaz, which is our youngest son's birthstone. And they coordinate well with these earrings. He did not design these. These are a Tiffany's design, but they match perfectly. I went away to college, and then after that started working for a wonderful nonprofit called A Better Chance that works for better educational opportunities for students of color. And that's when I first started getting plugged into the idea that not everyone has the same opportunities and it's not fair, and if there's anything we can do about it, we should. Then there was a lot of international travel, and I got even more clued into the fact that people do not have equal opportunities, and it became something I wanted to work on. And I worked for Human Rights Watch, I worked for Internews, starting a program to train journalists to better cover human rights. And for a number of years I worked for the State Department's Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. And there we wrote annual reports on the human rights records of other countries, where we investigated their human rights practices over the course of the year and issued these annual reports, which were then used in giving aid, in developing military relations with each country. If they had a bad enough human rights record, we weren't allowed to give them any military aid or training. They were used in a number of ways. And we also funded nonprofits in these countries that established very innovative and effective programs to address human rights abuses in their countries. And we constantly lobbied their governments to improve their human rights practices, all of which was challenging enough. But then Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib hit, and suddenly they were hitting us over the head about our human rights practices, which sort of undermined our lobbying ability quite a bit. But it was a couple tough years, but there was no alternative but to keep doing what we've been doing and acknowledge the faults on our side and acknowledge their right to complain and speak out about the faults on our side and make it more of a two-way conversation than it had ever been before. So in that sense, it was a healthy development that we were acknowledging the sins on our side as well as theirs.